Blog Talk Radio.
When you're born in this world, you're given a ticket to the freak show.
It's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
And when you're born in America, you're given a front row seat.
So part of it is we have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents.
Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't.
There is no America. There is no democracy.
You have no choice. You have owners. They own you.
There is only IBM and ITT and AT&T and DuPont, Dow, Union Carbide, and Exxon. Those are the nations of the world today.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
You know how naive you sound.
Why?
Senators and presidents don't have men killed.
Oh. Who's being naive, Kay?
They got you by the ball.
Well, all right. Hello, my good freaks. Hello and welcome to the front row at the Freak Show. I am your host, Crafty, also known as the Crafty One, the Crafty Dog, El Dogacito, the Craftsman, and even in some circles, Wolfgang. But anyway, coming to you live, as always, from FEMA Region 1. That's right, baby. We are number one. And joining me momentarily will, of course, be the Adamizer, who occasionally sneaks out from his underground bunker just long enough to do the show here and help us drop some freak show truth on all y'all. Let me first, however, get a little business stuff out of the way. Front Row at the Freak Show is brought to you by absolutely no one, but we are willing to learn. Will you, send us away to a special school for that? Yeah. You can reach us here in the Front Row so many ways. Of course, broadcasting here where you can always get all our archived shows on blogtalkradio.com. If you are a tweet head, it's at Adamizer1. If you'd like to, jump in to just any of the regular, shall we say, energized debates happening over at Adamizer1 throughout the week, and also at the Freak Show, where we are coming along in our tweetdom. I actually had a post, not a post, but a reply favorited by none other than Peter Joseph himself this past week, so that was kind of cool. It wasn't TZM or any of the offshoot pages. It was actually the official Peter Joseph Twitter feed, and I don't know. Suppose it could have been a bot or even some human assistant, but I guess it was kind of cool anyway, getting some recognition by the man. Let's see, Crafty at frontrow@thefreakshow.com if you want to shoot us an email, and please do. Let us know how we're doing. Questions, comments, hopes, dreams, desires, you lady freaks, especially the desires. Tell me all about that inner freak inside of you and all those nasty little things that you... Right. So, yes, Crafty at frontrow@thefreakshow.com. And, of course, the website, frontrow@thefreakshow.com, and Front Row at the Freak Show on YouTube, Facebook, all over the web. I was actually thinking maybe we should set up like a post office box, right? Get all old school and shit. Maybe that's how we will get some Latvian correspondence going. Get a couple of pen pals from Latvia. The good Lord knows that they sure as shit can write better than us Americans. But anyway, hey, we got another full show ahead of us, just jam packed, like Melissa McCarthy's refrigerator. And I do see that his mic is on, and I am sure he is just itching to get the hell on here and start taking a bite out of this thing that we call the Freak Show. Adamizer, you got your ears on good, buddy?
I'm here. What's going on, man?
Here.
You see it?
What's that?
I say it's good to be here, man. It's been a pretty long week, having snow in the middle of April last week and having to deal with all that ridiculousness. So I'm happy to be here on the air and hopefully opening up some minds tonight.
Fantastic. Adamizer, I'm just wondering maybe, if I know we haven't completely 100% settled it ourselves, but, should we fill the good freaks in about next week's program?
I don't see why not.
Next week, yours truly, Crafty, will be unable to host the show, so the steering wheel is going over to the Adamizer. And he's going to take control of the front row next week, so I am obviously not disappointed that Adamizer's taking it over, but as I told him, I really wanted to do the 420 show, and unfortunately the stars are not aligning, kids' vacation week, all that sort of stuff, but it is, in fact, Adamizer, and maybe potentially a guest host along with him.
And make sure you look at it this way. One way or the other, it will be entertaining. I mean, either I'm going to fix the mask, or I'm going to crash and burn, and either way, you get to sit back and listen and laugh.
Absolutely. And as I told Adamizer, I will be able to maybe chip in, call in at some point. It's just again, vacation week, have the kids, and the the timing of it all. I run a rigid ship over here, so that bedtime comes, and I can't be getting my freak on blogtalkradio.com. So anyway, all right. So live chat question of the night. Let's get that out there. And I do have it posted in the live chat room here on blogtalkradio.com, and it is simply because we are talking about mainstream media this week. Who is your least favorite mainstream media fish? Is it a Fox fish? Maybe an MSNBC fish? Maybe you go old school, like a CBS fish. And bonus freak points, if you can also add or include your least favorite mainstream media show. The O'Reilly Factor. What's it called?
I think O'Reilly and Hannity are going to be
good. Yeah, Hannity, Good Morning America, any of those truly awful programs. But so that's your live chat question of the night. Let's hear you. Let's get that chat room full and cranking. Adamizer, before I break into a little something here, anything that you got itching on your plate that you want to bring up?
Just that I've been having a lot of interesting conversations today, particularly this evening. Somebody brought up the idea of, they asked me the question, why is people's sexual preference a political issue? This was coming from a conservative. And I had to break it to him. I said, listen, the people's sexual preferences aren't an issue as far as your opposition is concerned. The only thing that's an issue as far as your opposition is concerned is equality, okay? The issue comes up when you're trying to deny rights to any minority group simply because you don't like them, So I've been having a lot of fun back and forth on Twitter, if anybody wants to check that out. And actually had one of my followers chime in who's both gay and atheist, who was saying some very interesting things. And, I guess he was in an argument all night last night with a guy insisting that being gay is a choice, and telling him that he denies that it's a choice because he doesn't want to be held accountable. And it's kind of funny because, of course, the reality is when you, on no basis whatsoever, start saying being gay is a choice, you're the one who doesn't want to be held accountable for your own bigotry. And it's just fucking insane, the hoops, the mental hoops that people are jumping through to justify their own bigotry these days. And the fact that states are justifying it, that states are, Indiana and now North Carolina is talking about banning or allowing hospitals to discriminate against gays. This has got to stop. People are people, and if you are one of these believers in God, you have to accept that these people are exactly as your God made them. Leave them the fuck alone.
Yes, and with that I agree. And but I want to play, at least devil's advocate for a second here, since you brought this up. And certainly, obviously, with something like hospitals. But, I think that's a whole different ball game. But, when you're talking about, say, the bakeries or these businesses that are choosing, right, not to make cakes or something, right? Mm-hmm. Shouldn't private companies, let me just set this in the current construct that we're operating in, okay? But shouldn't companies be allowed to deny anyone for any reason?
No, absolutely not. At that basis, you can deny black people, you can deny, any minority that you are bigoted against. Absolutely not. If you got to realize private companies are still authorized by the state. All right? It is still, you cannot open a bit, just the same way you can't hang out a sign that says no blacks allowed. Okay, this is absolutely no different. Once we start allowing people to treat others as if they're less than human, less worthy of services, where is our society headed? Well,
and the reason why I posed the question is because shouldn't then, the court of public opinion be able to shut these people down as opposed to, government stepping in?
Well, what are we talking about here?
If someone comes out,
especially today, if not, we're talking about how easily manipulated public opinion can be. And the fact is, you take Chick-fil-A as an example. Okay, for every person that decided they were going to boycott Chick-fil-A, some other, bigoted asshole decided to buy twice as much at Chick-fil-A. So public opinion doesn't dictate right and wrong. Public opinion does not solve the problem of discrimination. By that token, public opinion, during the civil rights movement was heavily in favor of continuing discrimination against blacks. Should the public opinion have been allowed to do what those of us with a conscience knew was wrong? I mean, there is right and wrong, whether some people want to admit it or not, whether some people want to defer to a crazy fucking ancient separate book of snuff porn for their right and wrong or not. There is right and wrong, and when you're discriminating against people for no other reason than because you're a bigot, I'm sorry, that's wrong, and there's no two ways about that.
I'm not saying it's not wrong. Right, that's really not.
I know you're not. I'm speaking more to the people who are saying that. But yeah.
Well, I mean, take the civil rights example. Government ends up stepping in, and African American and the African American community has gone even further downhill almost ever since. They're allowed to drink at the same water fountain, but as far as realizing the American dream or raising themselves out of the poverty or any of that, they've probably gone backwards. So,
yeah, but at the very least, they have recourse if they're discriminated against, whether it's trying to get a job or being served at a business. If that happens, they have somebody they can turn to who is going to stand up for fairness. That's all that we're talking about here. I mean, if there is no recourse whatsoever for a gay person who's denied access to a business, to a hospital, whatever else, then again, what kind of society are we at that point? And as I say, when you talk about the court of public opinion, you got to remember over half of this country believes that a senior citizen rounded up 2 of every animal and stuck them on a fucking ark. Public opinion is generally stupid, and I'm sorry, it's true. The reality is the public is, and we talk about a lot, the public is more easily led down the road of feeding into their bad wolf, feeding into their bigotry, their hatred, and everything else, that if we just left it to that instead of leaving the decisions to those who can make them objectively when we're talking about issues of right and wrong, then, again, who's next? We're already in a position where I, as an atheist, could not legally get married in Oklahoma. Okay? Why? What the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? How are these kinds of things progressing us as a society towards where we want to be, which is, equal opportunity for all people? The fact is, if this sort of thing keeps up, there's nothing to stop the majority of businesses in the United States from denying me employment as an atheist, from denying gays employment, from denying blacks employment.
Well, let me just ask you something. So I own that bakery, right?
Yep.
Or I own a bakery. And the guy comes in and he says, I want a cake that says, I fucking hate niggas, they should all die.
Yep.
So I should have to make that?
Nope, absolutely not. And this is the difference, okay? When we're talking about is feeding into discrimination, okay? That if you make that cake, you are feeding into discrimination, okay? You are helping people to discriminate at that point, all right? There is nothing that compares when you're talking about somebody who comes in and says, oh, I want to make a gay pride T-shirt or a gay pride cake or whatever else, okay? Nobody's being discriminated against, all right? You are not in any way an accessory to the discrimination that is going on, as you would be if you made that cake that says, nigger suck or whatever else. Absolutely, I think you have a right to discriminate against people who are asking you to help them discriminate. Okay? That is certainly a line that I am fine with. But when you're just talking about somebody coming in asking for, yay, I'm gay on a cake, they're not discriminating against anybody. If they're not discriminating against anybody, I don't see how you have any right to discriminate against them.
All right, I'll accept it, and again, mostly playing devil's advocate there, but
I understand.
I think it's a slippery slope, and obviously, hey, I agree 100% with the Adamizer as far as what the court of public opinion ultimately says and the stupidity from which it's said. But again, I want to aim the bar higher, right? And set it so as people come up, they're not even thinking of not making a cake based on someone's sexuality, right?
Right, exactly.
And again, I framed it in our current construct, in our current matrix that we are in, right? When we're talking about, government intervention and this and that and less government, whatever, right? Just that, I don't know, I guess maybe I'm making a libertarian argument there.
But the problem with
free market and just as they're able to not make it, people are able to stand outside of their place with a sign and says, this guy's an asshole, blah, 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 right? And exercise their right of free speech.
Well, the problem comes up when you're making any type of libertarian argument, that you're basically taking the approach of the good of the one or the few outweighs the good of the many. I mean, that is not a good rule for any society whatsoever. And I think at the end of the day, you have to step back and you have to say, what is the problem here? The problem is discrimination. And the only time that you have any valid excuse whatsoever to discriminate against anybody is to discriminate against them on the basis that they are being discriminatory. That is the only reason that can be justified. I think that, and that's why I say, again, when it comes to the cake example, whatever else, yes, it's fine if you want to discriminate against those who are discriminating, okay? But short of that, there is literally no excuse I can think of that justifies discriminating against anybody, especially people you don't know, just because they happen to be a certain way. That doesn't, because they happen to be black, because they happen to be gay, because they happen to be whatever.
Right.
That is not your place to do that. Or not you specifically.
I agree with you.
Not anybody's place to do that.
Wondering about the methods, is there a better approach to,
I think we have to accept. I think we have to accept that putting the interests of society as a whole above the interests of the individual, especially an individual who's just seeking his own right to discriminate against people he doesn't like. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think we are headed down the right road when we accept the fact that society as a whole should have certain rights that should be protected by society as a whole, rather than so much of this over respect for the rights of the individual versus the society itself. I mean, a society has the right to do away with discrimination the same way it has the right to do away with slavery. Sure. And I mean, again,
I'll just argue that I think the way we did it obviously didn't work, right? And I don't just the forcing of people, I think, never works very good and always causes more conflict, I guess. So I'm just trying to find out.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that there are some cases where you don't if people are going to refuse to do the right thing, or in this case, refuse not to discriminate, then you have no choice but to resort to force. And you mentioned free speech. I think free speech is important, but we have to remember that there's a difference between free speech, which we're supposed to have, and completely unfettered speech. And the idea that you can't walk into a crowded theater and yell fire. You should not be. I don't believe that free speech should cover things like hate speech, or or trying to sell discrimination as religious rights, or any of that. I don't think that should fall under free speech in any decent society.
Right. All right.
You're going to kill the president. There's certain limits that we do impose on free speech. I think those limits should extend to include not just a question of is this hate speech or is this something that's promoting discrimination, but certainly I think that wouldn't we be better off if free speech had to meet the caveat of what you were saying had to be true? Fox News would be off the air. Which, ties us into our mainstream media topic tonight. Yes.
Excellent. An excellent way to wrap it up. And again, I just like to play devil's advocate sometimes and kick things up. But Adamizer, let's just take a real quick break, and we will get back into that thing that I wanted to get into. All right. Quick break, coming right back in 1:18.
Conspiracy?
Yeah, I mean, the fact is you've got these psychopaths, whether they're running the top businesses or whether they're running the country or both, that, they want more and more and more. That's all they can think about, and they'll step on anybody and send your kids off to die to get it. And that's the world we live in.
My mother was actually a black Irish Italian Muslim, lesbian hooker with a lisp.
Maybe.
What is so interesting about us in the first place?
This fucking soulless horse.
My question is to the Adamizer.
I'm glad you asked, Adamizer.
Then you really need to re-examine your objectivity on the subject, because you don't have any.
Screwed?
My ass is open. Wait, let me rephrase that.
Read that book, cover to cover. Read that fucking book.
I'm not sitting here suggesting we burn them all and completely rid the planet of them.
And if the God described in the Bible is real and is what is described in that Bible, he's not your fucking friend. He's a monster, and we should all get together and hunt him down and kill him.
Definitely. To me, at the very least, it's the root of all tyranny. Get your freak on. Front Row at the Freak Show on blogtalkradio.com/Front Row. All right, and we are back. And I am just answering in the chat room here. Question was, what does the fish part mean? And it means absolutely nothing. I guess I could just answer it on air than try to type it. But I thought it was a Pink Floyd thing, my least favorite fish. I thought it was a Pink Floyd line. Anyway, it was just kind of a different way to pose the question. So hopefully that answers that for you. I wish I was data. So anyway, all right. So let me get that going. All right. So, Adamizer.
Yeah.
I gave you a little heads up the other day, and that I might want to go down this path here.
You did.
Before
and
we
I told
get
you
into the mainstream media.
I told you I'd check it out a little, and I did, and I'm actually prepared with some questions, so I'll let you get your thing on. I'm looking forward to asking the questions.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't, part of the problem here is, it ultimately became a tough week here for Crafty with regard to getting ready for the show because, it was going along just fine. And as most of the freaks out there know, sometimes Crafty, I like to do a little bullshitting for the first few minutes or whatever, which I was fully planning on doing. And then I forget when it was I hit you up, but I think it was late Wednesday night when I checked out a new podcast interview from one of my favorite YouTube channels, Red Ice Radio, which I can, talk about later and probably get into during our Alt Media Week. But anyway, this little interview here, it done and turned my week on its head. I spent the first 36 hours after hearing the interview scouring YouTube and the internet for other interviews and news about it. And then I spent the last couple of days just flip-flopping on if I want to bring it up here during the show, because, of course, we're focusing on mainstream media this week, which I do think when we get into it, I can make a tie-in to the mainstream media. But, I think ultimately it came down to Adamizer, me not being here next week, and if I could have waited just 1 week and brought it up, I would have. But since I'm going to be going 2 weeks, I just couldn't wait, To me, the story is just too big, It was just too damn big. And, speaking of that, as a very extreme aside here, it just reminded me, did you see the story on Drudge about the German guy who siliconed up his manhood to a whopping 9 pounds?
No, I did not.
Seriously.
Why? Now, I got one question, though. Why stop at 9 pounds? I mean, if you're going to do that, why not go full on?
I don't think he's done. Yeah, I don't think he's done. The really amazing thing is it's still only 3 inches. But anyway, all right. Rebecca Roth. Who? You're probably asking, as I was. Well, Rebecca Roth was the interviewee here that I caught late Wednesday night, and she wrote a historical fiction novel that was released in November. And let me just repeat that. It was a historical fiction novel. And I was actually kind of surprised that it took so long, or as long as it did, to kind of make its way in front of me, or for her to make her way online and across my radar, as, usually my radar is up for these things. But from what I can tell, it probably took a good couple of months to really get circulated, read, and digested out there. This was her first writing effort of any kind, and it looks like she really started the interview circuit in February, March. So anyway, the historical part of the novel was about 9/11. And for those that have been following Crafty at all since I started any of this podcast or blog stuff, 9/11 is a subject that I take very seriously. I was a bit of a Johnny-come-lately to the whole 9/11 truth movement, but once it took, it took. And obviously, I know there's a lot of guys out there who have done a shitload more research than myself. But for your average Joe, I feel like I have done some pretty extensive stuff and research into the day. Probably well into the hundreds of hours of reading and watching and writing. So, let me just say, where the movement might have little spikes here and there, or someone or something gets a little extra attention or a bump, it's a rare day when something kind of new is brought to the table. And I'm going to be honest, has this lady discovered or uncovered anything truly brand spanking new here? No. However, what she has done is bring an entirely new perspective and a new, unique experience to especially one area of the official narrative that has largely got little fanfare over the years. And in my humble opinion, what she has done is open a big old can of whoop-ass on this part of the story and simply ripped it to shreds. I'm speaking mostly about the entire actual hijackings themselves. The shit that went down on the planes. Apparently she was a steward, a flight attendant for over 30 years. And as she put it in one of the interviews I heard, the people who actually carried out the plan really should have consulted a flight attendant because it is very obvious that they didn't. And from all this, the story, the entire 9/11 narrative truly unravels. And if you don't mind, Adamizer, I just wanted to read from her website just to give people the real flavor of what it is she's talking about. So here it is.
I read off the website a little bit earlier myself.
Okay. So it said, I returned on a flight from Rome, where I was the purser for a major airline not many hours before the news of 9/11 hit. I had been a flight attendant for 28 years at the time and awoke to see a plane fly into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. I may have been groggy, jet-lagged, and generally out of sorts, but I knew from training and experience that airplanes do not fly through buildings. Over the next 72 hours, I remained glued to the television, watching and listening in disbelief at what I saw and heard. Every flight attendant knew in 2001 that cell phones did not work at altitude. Flight attendants attempting to report that their plane was being hijacked would never call reservations or operations. That would be like calling Hertz to get your car repaired. Things were not adding up for me, and worst of all, none of the hijacking protocols that were drilled into every pilot and flight attendant every year during reoccurring training had been followed, or had not been followed. I knew something was not right, but it was too painful to explore, and I found comfort in simply not knowing. I left the airline shortly after 9/11 and pursued other opportunities, yet I always knew that someday, when I could balance the inconsistencies with the pain they engendered, I would get to the bottom of what really happened that day. When the time was right, I began to look at the occurrences of that fateful day from my perspective as a career flight attendant. I studied, dug, researched, and questioned every aspect and every angle of the events as they had been reported, and what I found was so horrific. I literally became ill. As the pieces began to fit together, I decided to incorporate them into a novel, allowing for a plausible deniability to protect me, and yet at the same time allowing me to expose the horrendous truth that must now be shared. And then from the back of the page, it just describes that, again, it's a historical fiction. It just says the glamorous life of an international flight attendant can be anything but. The main character is this flight attendant called Vera Hansen. Discovered the morning one of her crew members was found murdered in a Paris hotel room, and that morning began to put into focus some of the experiences of Vera's 30-year airline career, which she had purposely been avoiding. It caused her to look more deeply into the questions surrounding 9/11 that never made sense to a flight attendant, but that no one had seriously investigated. And written as a novel, Methodical Illusion, that's the name of it, has been excruciatingly researched from an insider's perspective, utilizing proprietary knowledge of airplanes, universal FAA protocols, standardized flight crew procedures, all hijacking policies. The results are the never-before-revealed answers to the daunting questions everyone has had, but few have dared to ask aloud for fear of the repercussions that undoubtedly follow. Rebecca Roth is right on target with her mind-blowing research, which is guaranteed to open your eyes. Okay. So that's where we're starting from. And how much did you get a chance to listen to, Adamizer?
Mainly, I read what was on the website. I checked out a couple of articles about her. I knew I wasn't going to have time, obviously, to read the whole book or do any of the longer films that were on YouTube about her, longer interviews and stuff. But enough to get just probably about at the level of what you just explained. So I probably was wasting my time. I should have just waited and listened to what you just
No, I mean, did you come away with... I mean, here's the deal. I've come away these last few days feeling that the 9/11 let me rephrase it. I feel like she has put a light on 9/11 that hasn't been put on before. Okay? And really highlighted some areas that haven't been highlighted before. And as such, it has the potential to be truly game-changing in the 9/11 movement. And I really do believe that. So, mostly, obviously, what I wanted to do here tonight was get our audience aware that this is out there, that this lady's out there. There's now, I listened to, starting Wednesday with that first interview, I probably listened to 6 interviews between Wednesday and today, all ranging from an hour to 3 hours. I just really couldn't get enough of it. And
Now I got to hop in. I got to hop in as devil's advocate on this one, okay? Because you're talking about it's game changing, everything else. Now it does seem to me that there is a new perspective here. There's things that wouldn't have been considered by people from other, obviously people who weren't flight attendants and who didn't have that kind of training. I absolutely understand all that. But to me, isn't it kind of too little, too late in the sense that, if you, take this away. Okay, act like this woman didn't exist. This book never came out. All right. Either the evidence, either you've looked at the evidence and the official narrative for 9/11 was bullshit, or you didn't look at the evidence. There's really no other position to be in. So it seems to me like, who is this going to reach? That either isn't already, that's not already a 9/11, somebody who's already figured out the truth. It seems to me that the only, the people who are going to buy this book are people like you and me and other folks who are looking for more, more perspective, more interesting evidence. But the evidence that exists without the book is certainly more than enough to convince any objective person. So that's where I got a question: is this really going to make any difference at all? Is this just preaching to the choir at this point?
And to answer you bluntly, no, I do not think so. And here's why.
Go ahead.
Number one, it's as I said, historical fiction. So it takes place in the novel. In the genre of a novel, okay?
Yeah.
So, and as she put it in a couple of her interviews, what she's seen as far as sales, which have exploded, she's in the top 10 of Amazon, or whatever, I forget the numbers, but, it's absolutely taken off, and people are buying cases and everything else. And actually, it's doing exactly what, kind of you just said, that it's not going to reach that's what it's doing, is reaching people it otherwise wouldn't have done. Like, it's a kinder, gentler way to get people to start rethinking 9/11. Okay? So,
okay, I can
and as she put it, like, she was really amazed because, like, a lot of the sales that she's seeing is like the 50-plus age group, right?
Yeah.
So, where, people that, either maybe not be YouTube savvy, what have you, that the older generation, this is something that they can ease themselves into with, okay?
That's very interesting.
Okay.
Because I had actually once considered doing a similar kind of thing, instead of debunking the Bible and doing my typical pointing out of contradictions and pointing out of total bullshit in the Bible, of actually doing kind of a historical fiction thing, telling the story of Jesus as I think it most likely would have actually unfolded, and telling how all of the things in the Bible might be explained rationally, or at least most of them be explained rationally, by a combination of charlatanism and actual historical facts that were involved with that. So it's interesting. It's kind of encouraging as far as the fact that if she's reaching the audience that you say that she's reaching. Then I wonder if that same type of approach might work for other aspects of trying to get the truth out there.
Oh, I think so, and that's what has really struck kind of everyone as I've listened to these interviews. And the interview, like I said, I caught the first one on Red Ice Radio, and it's funny, I've listened to 100 interviews on that guy's their YouTube channel, and I can't even remember the host's name. That's how good a job he does, right? I mean, but anyway, I mean that's kind of what they're all really focusing on is that aspect of it, and the other not the other side of it, but what runs along with it is, okay, what happens? And as you said, the evidence that's out there. Okay, a lot of it is technical, right? When you start talking about physics and buildings blowing up, and whether it was demolition or not, and all these things that have had X amount of an equal amount of debunkers right along the way, right? As crazy as those debunkers are,
right,
most times people just see this has been debunked and that's all they looked into it, right?
Do you think that that's the case though when it comes to 9/11? Because I feel like with 9/11, again, I feel like there's two camps. There's those who have examined the evidence and those who believe the official narrative. Because I just cannot even fathom somebody who would buy any of this stuff. Because there are a few debunkers out there trying to push this, that, or the other thing. But if you have looked at, even an hour's worth of it, even spent an hour or two on the evidence, then no debunker is going to change the facts that you've seen. I mean, there's so much, such an overwhelming amount, and it just seems to me like.
Look, Adam, I've had people just from my own personal experience in talking to people, right? And whether it be a Facebook post or whatever, just showing the 7 seconds that it took for Building 7 to fall into its own footprint after not being hit by a plane.
Yeah.
And it's still, they say, okay, so then they say, that is kind of crazy. Let me look it up. Oh, well, NIST said, and then they don't pursue any further, right? Or that they see that there's controversy there. They see that there's two conflicting sides, and they just say, I'm just going to take the side of the government because it's easier, right? I'm not going to rock the boat.
Those people are always going to do that. I don't know that anything's going to reach those kind of people.
Maybe you're right. That's what I'm kind of getting at here. The evidence that she is highlighting here, which has, at least in my opinion, and from all the research that I've done, has gone largely under the radar, is very non-debunkable, right? Because of this unique perspective and experience that she's bringing, right? There's really not any way that someone's going to be able to debunk when she sits there and talks about how what's the stewardess's name, Ong, one of them who called in for 27 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And talked on the air. She's like, okay, number one, airphones were almost as unreliable as cell phones at the time. There's absolutely no way that, she would have been able to talk for 27 minutes. Number two, even if she were able to talk for 27 minutes, that's completely against protocol. And then she goes X, Y, and Z through why it's against protocol. Number three, even if she was able to stay online for 27 minutes, even if she was breaking protocol, what she actually said, right? Like she said, we might be getting hijacked. Well, no, you don't make a call. Number one, you don't make a call to the reservations desk, which apparently she did, to maybe get put on hold without even talking to someone, as that's how reservation desk, and she fully well knows that, right? If you're gonna risk making a phone call, then you're gonna make it count, right? And so anyway, but she said, the hijacker, he is upstairs, and she was on a 757, of which there are no stairs on a 757, only on the 747, so she never would have said that. And it just right down the line. So it's check, 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 okay? And again, when you do get into, and I can't wait to actually read the book, right? I haven't done that. I haven't had the time yet, of course. But, just according to the interviews, and also the way she presents it, if the book is written anything like the way she presents it, which is just so calmly and coming from this genteel, older woman, right, professional woman, I just think all of these things add up to potentially being game changers.
I just wonder, though, first of all, what she put out there is relatively new. So it seems to me like the debunkers are going to come around after this the same way they did after any other piece of evidence. And the other thing is, am I really going to be that much, so convinced by the perspective of a stewardess? And yes, I say stewardess, and I'll tell you a little joke about
flight
that.
attendant.
Hey, I'll tell you a little joke about that in a minute that you'll enjoy. But am I really going to be more convinced by her perspective than I am by that of the thousands of engineers who have said it's simply not possible for buildings to fall in their own footprint regardless of the damage? You know what I mean?
Right.
It seems to me like...
Well, that's the thing, Adamizer. See, that guy, they appeal to you and me, right? If she can tip the balances and call in a whole new group of people, right, that were previously unreachable for whatever reason, and she can do it a few different ways, that might be enough to tip the balance. That's really what I'm getting at. Now, when I first, just like, I emailed you and it was like, whoa, I got, this lady, whoa, right? I texted a couple of friends of mine, all that. how did I put it? I said, to me, this is game-changing stuff. I know I'm being overly naive and optimistic, right? And it probably will just end up being a fart in the wind. But to me, right now, and hearing these interviews, and can't wait to read this book, it really looks like it's just another level that hasn't been hit before, that I'm hoping, again, that can just rein in a whole new group of people. As she's been talking, she has tremendous support from people in the airline industry right now, and being someone of 28 years, has a large network of colleagues, and they're buying the book by the case and giving them out. So, again, I don't know, ultimately, is the question. But I did think it worthy enough of coming and presenting this. And, again, it's, relatively new 9/11 info. I feel obligated to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely understand that perspective on it. There's no question that anything that helps to get the message out is helpful, and I think that's you can't argue with that. Again, I just wonder, is this the type of thing that's going to have a quick peak and then drop off very quickly? And only time will answer that question, I suppose.
No, you're absolutely right. And one of the other reasons I wanted to bring this up now and not wait 2 weeks, and you can take this for what you will, but in her last interview, and I do have the clip, we can play it. It's we can stop it at any time. It's like a 10-minute thing, but we can stop it and play as much as we want. Almost time for a break, but let me give you this little tidbit. In the last interview that I heard, she brings up info that she has recently learned, and she admits that it's only an educated guess, but it's based on things that she has both read and heard, and that is that another attack or attacks, yes, that's right, plural, are imminent. And by imminent, she's giving specific dates of May 2nd through the 11th. And yes, that's a total of 9 days ending on the 11th, 9/11. Now, I feel it's flimsy at best, and I believe, that she is truly saying it, thinking that, I truly believe that she believes what she is saying. But I also feel like she might be getting played, right?
Right.
Because now she's coming out and predicting, and when I say predicting attacks, like I said, she's gone on record now saying, for a 9-day span of chemical, biological, nuclear attacks, this May, like 3 weeks from now, 2nd through the 11th. And it all has to tie into, I guess, this year, and I didn't get the name of it, but it's some celebratory Jewish or Israel celebration thing, and which, by the way, she completely pins 9/11, not just on Israel, but that they were obviously a major player in the attacks, and but I guess there's this celebration that doesn't happen every year. It's happening this year. And that it was a report she read online. It was then wiped clean or something like that. And then a senator came along and said something else. Again, I can play the clip if we want to. I know we're running into break time now. maybe we'll just hold off on it. But, again, I think all the freaks listening to us, our audience are 9/11 savvy, and it was certainly, like we are, and it again was something new and different, and the way she details and chronicalizes everything is really second to none. And just her research goes well beyond what happened on the planes. But what she's saying with this, new imminent attack stuff is obviously it's again, take it for what it's worth, but it's pretty explosive stuff, pun intended.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Adamizer?
Just to say, again, I think it's a very interesting new direction to take it in, but as I say, only time's going to tell. And as I was mentioning in the chat room, I think it's going to be. I don't think we're ever going to reach the tipping point to where the majority of people fail to believe the official narrative of 9/11. I think that long before that happens, we're going to have a full politico-economic crash, and 9/11 will be almost a footnote to that. I think it's very sad. I think 9/11 should have woken up the majority of people, but it just goes to show what a good job they've done in pacifying the public that it hasn't, and I just don't see that changing. I mean, no matter how many books come out, no matter how many people come out and speak the truth. I mean, even if the President of the United States got up there and said, that he believed that 9/11 was bullshit, I think you would still have well over half the country preferring their comfortable lies to the truth.
Popping my bubble, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
You're popping my 9/11 bubble.
I wish. I mean, I would love to see it. I would love to see
my 9-pound cock just deflated, Adamizer.
Like I say, when it comes to the public doing the right thing for the right reasons, I'm skeptical. I'm always skeptical.
I gotcha. Well, anyway, that's the Rebecca Roth story. Please, check her out on your own. You can get the book on Kindle format for $9 or something like that. I do think it promises to be a very interesting read. And again, I put a lot of, I have a lot of respect for a lot of the, podcast interviewers that I listen to, and she has been making the rounds, so to speak, and answers every question, and is a great interview. So check her out. Maybe this isn't the last time we talk about her or this on in the front row. And but with that being said, what do you say we take a break, our first of the evening, and go with a little comedy time? What do you say to that, Adamizer?
Sounds good to me, brother.
All right. Well, this is I got some John Oliver for us tonight, and this is not from last week tonight, but back in his stand-up days. And actually, in this clip, he does go on. He has a minute bit about about Fox and mainstream media, and it's really funny. But the surrounding 3-4 minutes, this didn't jive, so I kind of went off the board a little with this clip. But if you listen to this entire show, which is obviously on YouTube, you can get his take on Fox and MSM. So anyway, here's John Oliver, and we will be back. You're listening to Front Row with the Freak Show on blogtalkradio.com.
Primarily, I've gathered you all here this evening to to tell you this, that it's not easy being British, as Kermit so nearly sang. The reason being, as a British person, it is impossible for me to walk into any museum in any nation on the planet Earth without, within 5 minutes, starting to feel guilty. You have no idea what that feels like. You will. Oh, you will. One day, all this shame will be yours, my American friends. For you have taken the baton of imperialism from us, and you're running with it quite impressively. In around 50 years, you'll hand it over to China, who are waiting like a coiled spring, and they will sprint towards Armageddon. And that is how the world will end. Sorry, I should say, spoiler alert. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. America receives so much criticism for what it does with its foreign policy at the moment, but the only mistake you've made is that you're doing what you're doing now in the era of 24-hour cable news. We didn't do that. In many ways, that was our single slice of genius. I, for one, am glad that the Amritsar massacre in India was captured only in watercolour. And that there wasn't an awkward-looking reporter with a monocle and a handlebar moustache standing in front of it saying, uh-oh, bit of a kerfuffle here. This has escalated into something of a ballyhoo. Details are sketchy. This has been Barnaby Wapplethorpe, back to you in the studio. What? And yet, does it not say something for the way in which this current US administration is viewed by the West of the world, that I think deep down, this planet yearns for the days of the British Empire again. They long once more to be treated that badly, that politely. We did far worse things than you could possibly dream of now, but we did it with that certain gentlemanly swagger. We were more elegantly destructive than you. We were like Godzilla in a necktie, just rampaging our way across Africa. Excuse me, coming through. Dreadfully sorry, I seem to have crushed your entire continent's infrastructure. How shockingly impolite. I'm embarrassed, goodness knows how you must feel. Allow me to make it up to you by offering you a job 4,000 miles away. No, I insist, come with me. Jobs for everybody, this way. Democracy is in a mess at the moment. There is only one democratic nation on earth which has a respectable turnout at its elections, and that's Australia, where they have 100% voting. How have they achieved this? Well, in Australia, it's illegal not to vote. It's brilliant. Who would have thought they had that level of thinking down there? It must be the blood rushing to their heads. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but the point is they have compulsory voting, but the problem they've run into is that people over there have now started voting drunk. It's true, and it's got so bad, they're suggesting closing all pubs and bars next polling day, as a report's been released saying that voting drunk affects your ability to vote by 18%. Which I think has to be a guess. Because I like to think, when I've been truly drunk in my life, when I've really let myself down, that would affect my ability to vote by, and this is just a ballpark figure, but by 100%! In that it removes my ability to walk, think, and grip anything. And yet, this same report found out voting drunk actually makes you more right-wing. I did not see that coming. Because that is against the popular notion of the drunk man, isn't it? I love you! I bloody love you! But I cannot justify continued expenditure on the welfare state. We live in a troubled world. It's a lovely idea, but it doesn't work.
And that was John Oliver. And we are back here at the front row at the Freak Show. And why don't we now open up the phone lines? The number to call in here tonight is 646-668-8756. And give us a call. Give us your thoughts. Mainstream Media, Rebecca Roth, John Oliver, whatever you'd like. Again, the number is 646-668-8756. And while I'm at it, at Adamizer1, at The Freak Show, front row at thefreakshow.com, Crafty at the front row at thefreakshow.com, and, of course, front row at thefreakshow.com on YouTube and Facebook. All right, Adamizer. I think we agreed once again that we are going to trim the scuttlebutt a little bit. Adamizer, you out there?
Sorry, I had my mute on.
That is all right.
Yeah, I was just deciding between my two favorite stories of the week here. I think I'm going to go with, mind if I lead off?
No, I don't, but before you do, I do have, if we're going to go into scuttlebutt, so just hold your horses there for 1 second. Now you may go.
Very well done. Very well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, the story I'm going to choose, if I can only pick one today, comes at us from a site called addictinginfo.org, and the headline in question, Kansas Republican bill literally bans poor people from having lives. Okay? And it's kind of interesting if you, maybe some of you have seen this, maybe some of you haven't. But it's starting in Kansas, and I've heard rumors that other states are looking to do the same type of thing, where basically they're going to put a whole bunch of new restrictions on TANF recipients. For those of you who don't know what TANF is, that's temporary assistance to needy families. It's, welfare, basically. Okay, and I think it's worth mentioning before I even get into this that over 70% of people on welfare are actually working in low-wage jobs. You can only imagine what other percentage, of the remaining amount are out there looking for jobs every day. This idea that people on welfare are all welfare queens is friggin' ridiculous. And how many of these folks are disabled? How many of them are veterans? There really is no excuse for the constant demonization of people who are on welfare. But anyways, this bill going through in Kansas is going to, and let me make sure I explain this properly. They're not just looking to control what people do with what they receive from TANF, okay? They're literally looking to ban them from being able to purchase things like alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco products, lottery tickets, concert tickets, professional, collegiate, sporting event tickets, tickets for other entertainment events intended for the general public, and that's just a sampling, with any money that they might have. Okay, so if you got $100 from a friend or a relative at Christmas and you're on TANF, you are not allowed to spend that money on alcohol or cigarettes or whatever else. The few things that might make you being poor a little bit less painful. In addition, they're going to ban them from patronizing such establishments as casinos, gaming establishments, jewelry stores, tattoo parlors, massage parlors, body piercing parlors, spa, nail salon, lingerie shop, tobacco paraphernalia store, vapor cigarette store, psychic or fortune-telling business, bail bond company, video arcade, movie theater, swimming pool, cruise ship, theme park, dog or horse racing facility. Okay? So, in other words, if you happen to be one of the many, many, many people out there who is struggling to get by, probably working and yet receiving welfare, you're not going to be allowed to have any life whatsoever. Your only focus is apparently to get yourself off of the welfare in a situation where again, you're only on welfare in the first place because that's the way the system has been designed. They don't want people making decent wages. They don't want people to have an opportunity to contend with the wealthiest folks out there. So it's truly an absolute slap in the face. They're also looking to restrict the TANF recipients from withdrawing more than $25 a day at ATMs. Well, if you've ever used an ATM, you're familiar with the fact that they charge fees for every time you use them. So this seems to be an excellent bill for the banks. If you can only get 25, and you also know they don't give out $25; they give out $20. Okay, so you're going to have to pay that fee. How many times in a week? You're literally going to have to get. This is just absolute demonization and punishment of poor people for being poor. And while there are some people who are certainly poor for their own fault, and those people do exist, there are an extreme minority when it comes to welfare recipients. And all I'm going to say is, anybody who supports this kind of shit, fuck you. Just fuck you. I don't know what the hell else to say about it. It is just absolutely sickening to me that a society, first of all, can't offer people, any path to get out of welfare, and then is going to take and humiliate them even further by banning them from having any type of reasonable life. It makes me sick. It just makes me sick. Any thoughts on that?
I do, and what's interesting is that it makes perfect sense. Everything you just said doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. Yeah, it's this whole idea of getting, what little middle class is left, or at least the upper versions of the lower class, to demonize the people below them on the economic ladder, just as a way to distract them from the fact that the real person with their hand in their pockets are the people way above them on the economic ladder.
And of course, it's man. Again, I am shocked not at the story, and it's just another example of how low we have fallen, and as we've said time and time again, that people keep waiting around for the collapse. We are collapsing, and that's all I could possibly add to it.
Yep. What do you got for us?
All right. Well, I'm going to go really off the board here a little bit, but since it was MSM and Media Month here, I figure if I'm only picking one, why not pick something that probably no one else has read? And I'm sorry, my email thing just fills up with all sorts of, you go to log on to a site and all of a sudden you're getting their newsletter or whatever it is, right? And last week I got an email from Sarah Pack. And it was an email, it was a Patriot Survey email. And it said, "Dear Stephen, we all know it's true. Ronald Reagan was the greatest president of the 20th century. He knew how to lead and how to defend America at home and abroad. Like us, in these times of weak leadership from President Obama, sometimes you find yourself asking, what would Reagan do? If Reagan were still president, ISIS would be was. You know it's true, and now you can show how a courageous president would act in the face of a national security threat. Yes, I do, Sarah Palin, who is the originator of this email. He would allow for massive drug and arms trafficking by his intelligence agencies so that he could fund the poor, desperate freedom fighters of a country that coincidentally needs a leader that is friendly to American corporate interests. That is how Ronald Reagan would. But I just got a chuckle out of it. It was in my email box, and the Sarah Pack Patriot Survey gave me quite a chuckle. And again, I thought it was something that you're not going to find on your regular Drudge Report. Was that gorgeous or what? Is that propaganda at its finest or what?
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere, man. It's everywhere. You can't escape it these days. I mean, that's what we're talking about tonight. It's, the amount of bullshit being shoveled down the throats of every American these days, and not just every American, but it's a worldwide phenomenon, just to keep the system propped up and to make sure that those who have the money to sponsor that bullshit never lose a dime of it. It's fucking crazy.
It so is. It so is. So, 646-668-8756 if you want to chime in and call us in to the front row. And if you have a question for Adamizer or myself, I guess we'll start digging into the mainstream media. Where do you even start, Adamizer?
Let me start. I know exactly.
We have someone volunteering. Okay.
yes. I got the perfect place to start. I pulled this up. It's slightly dated. It's from 2011, but a very interesting comparison when it comes to mainstream media of where we're at now, or at least 4 years ago. It's only gotten worse since then, and where we were at in 1983. Okay, so we're talking going, almost 30 years back now, or over 30 years back. So in 1983, 90% of American media was owned by 50 companies. In 2011, that same 90% is controlled by how many companies, Crafty? You want to take a guess?
I'm going to go with 5, Adamizer.
6. It's probably
maybe
5 by now.
6.
But
depends who you ask.
Close, we will give that close enough, absolutely. Notably, it actually, and the thing I'm reading off of here lists a little bit of that, and it's very short. I'll just go into it. One who I really can't believe is, you don't even think of them as a media company, but it's GE. They own, and again, this is 2011, so there might be some updates here, some additional consolidation.
I do believe it is 5 now, though. I do believe that there was a big merger.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. But anyways, GE has Comcast, NBC, Universal Pictures, and Focus Features. News Corp, of course, has Fox, Wall Street Journal, New York Post. Disney has ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Miramax, and Marvel Studios. Viacom has MTV, Nick Jr., BET, CMT, and Paramount Pictures. Time Warner has CNN, HBO, AOL, and Warner Brothers. And CBS has Showtime, Smithsonian Channel, NFL.com, Jeopardy, and 60 Minutes. This is just a sampling, okay, of what these companies actually own or did own. And, again, it's gotten even worse since then. But the bottom line is this. As of 2011, there were 232 media executives in control of the information diet of 277 million Americans. All right? The idea that anything that you're seeing on news media is fair and balanced and isn't being driven by, again, those who can afford to own media giants like Disney, like Warner Brothers, like CBS is just absolute bullshit. Everything that you're seeing on what's supposed to be the news is a narrative. It's controlled, and while some parts of it may not be fictional, the narratives certainly are. And it does not matter whether, if you think Fox News is the only one that's selling you a line of bullshit, I'm here to tell you you're absolutely wrong. Okay? The counterbalance to that is your CNNs, your NBCs, your CBS. They're feeding you a slightly different narrative, but it's just as much of a bullshit thing, and they all have the same purpose, to prop up the people at the top and make sure they stay there.
Yeah, absolutely, and well put there, and of course I had some of the same information, at least as far as the consolidation, certainly of power over the last 30, 40 years. And let me take that, Adamizer, and add the caveat, of course. So now, just as you demonstrated how the media power has consolidated over the last 50 years, what really hasn't changed over the last 50 years, or if anything has only grown, is the CIA's involvement with all forms of media, the news, Hollywood, everything. And, I guess it all depends on, if you're listening, where you are in the wake-up process. Maybe what Adamizer just laid down for you, how 50 companies have turned into 5. Maybe that opens your eyes a little bit, and this might be old news for some, but it might be brand new to you. But there is a documented, well-known operation run by the CIA that was called Operation Mockingbird. And what I found actually was the best kind of description of it that I found was, and now I'm dropping the ball on his Bernstein's. What's his first name? Carl, right? Carl Bernstein.
Yeah. You're
Carl
talking Woodward and Bernstein. Yes, Carl. Yeah.
Yes. So this was from his 1977. He did a cover story for the Rolling Stone. And this is from that article. During the 1976 investigation of the CIA by the Senate Intelligence Committee, chaired by Senator Frank Church, the dimensions of the agency's involvement, as well as 2 or 3 investigators on the staff. But top officials of the CIA, including former directors William Colby and George Bush, persuaded the committee to restrict its inquiry into the matter and to deliberately misrepresent the actual scope of the activities in its final report. Shocker. The multi-volume report contains 9 pages in which the use of journalists is discussed in deliberately vague and sometimes misleading terms, and it makes no mention of the actual number of journalists who undertook covert tasks for the CIA, nor does it adequately describe the role played by newspaper and broadcast executives in cooperating with the agency. The agency's dealings with the press began during the earliest stages of the Cold War. Allen Dulles, who became director of the CIA in 1953, sought to establish a recruiting and cover capability within America's most prestigious journalistic institutions. And by operating under the guise of accredited news correspondents, Dulles believed CIA operatives abroad would be accorded a degree of access and freedom of movement unobtainable under almost any other type of cover. So anyway, essentially what I think is important to kind of take away from all this is the link, obviously, between our intelligence agencies and the media, that it's well established and documented. And it was run covertly starting almost immediately as soon as the agencies themselves began, and was then exposed in the 70s, and as you just read, exposed only to a degree via the church hearings. And, of course, it was ultimately, vague and obfuscated, and certainly without punishment of any kind. And just like the CIA or name your alphabet agency running highly illegal, immoral, and unconstitutional double-secret covert ops in the name of corporate interests, or smuggling drugs into the United States to fund said operations, they've been caught many times. Multiple whistleblowers have come forward over the years. They're caught time and time again, but it doesn't stop them. Just like the church hearings didn't stop them in their active control of the media. So you take what you had, the consolidation of the media, and then you throw in the CIA control over that media, and we are completely without a free press in this country.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And, it's, I believe it was Jim Morrison who said, whoever controls the media controls the mind. And, that's why you're having CIA involvement. That's why the richest people in the world are consolidating media. I mean, it's absolutely true that if they can control the information that's going to the vast majority of households out there, then they can control the narrative and they can control the way people see reality. And if you can do that, then you can control everything.
Yeah, I mean, to me it goes way beyond lying to us, right? I mean, lies are eventually found out. It's complete and total control of information. I mean, it is mind control, plain and simple. I mean, there's no other, label for it, right? And, of course, when we get into something like mind control, I mean, that's a whole other ballgame that we could go and discuss at another time, right? The actual tools and methods used to invoke us into a desired state. But, people don't want to believe it because they think they're smarter than that or above that, or maybe it has a little effect but nothing major, right? They couldn't be more wrong.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to go down that road tonight, but, every time you see a flag waving or an apple pie, they know exactly what the fuck they're doing, and it works.
All right, looks like we got a caller.
All right, we do have a caller. How long has we been waiting? Oh, shit. Let's see. Well, we are up against the break time, and hopefully 304, hopefully he can just wait out a song for us.
I was talking to him in the chat room.
Excellent.
He'll wait till after the break. He's got no problem with that.
Anytime you want. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so let's take our break, and then we'll have about half an hour left to go after this, maybe a little bit less. But so this guy, Adamizer, I think you might enjoy him. Name is John Fullbright, and actually Jimmy from the 781, who sometimes chimes in with us here, he turned me on to this guy. And haven't been able to get quite enough of him since that happened. He's been around for a few years now, and actually one of the videos that I watched of him, they introduced him as either a Grammy Award nominee or winner or something, so he's getting some attention out there. But he has otherwise flown under the radar to me, and like I said, just got turned on to him. And this is a song called God, G-A-W-D, Above, which I think is always appropriate for our forum here. So where is he? Okay, there he is. Here is John Fullbright.
You freaks stay tuned now, you hear? There'll be more Front Row with the Freak Show coming up right after this on blogtalkradio.com.
You'll really like.
I'll give you the correct demonstration. Cutie pie, pound those horse teeth.
that said there's one sure way humans can be bested. Give them wine and songs, fire and lust. When it all goes wrong, I'm the man to trust. And now you're all my own, all mine together. Will you sing my praise, sing my name forever? I am God above, Lord God Almighty, Mama. But that's not all. I've got me a flame and it's a swinger's ball. If you don't know my name, oh well, you think it's a hot down there in July. I've got the means and the kitchen to fry, and now you're all my own, all mine together, all my doubting children locked away forever. I am God above, Lord God Almighty, Mama. I made the heaven and earth, I made the stars above. Well, is it too much to ask for a little So I tip my hat to all of your creations. You can fly like birds, destroy entire nations, go and curse my name with your last breath. If all I brought to your life was death, and now you're all my own, all mine together. Will you sing my praise, sing my name forever? I am God above, Lord God Almighty, Mama.
And hopefully we haven't interrupted Adamizer doing anything with a cousin right now. Adamizer, you're still you're still with us, big guy.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, again, I'm not even saying it's that bad. It's just there's a certain twang about country music that just has me picturing the whole hillbilly cousin fucking scene. What do you want?
But if you can call that country, man, I mean, see, that to me right there, rock and roll. That's rock and roll. So, fuck yourself.
No, as I say, again, and I will say, it stays true today, at least your choices in country are much better than, for example, my wife's choices in country, which involve all of this modern crap that's, what is it, Kenny Chesney and fucking Garth Brooks and that kind. Oh, shit. Gouged my ears out with a spoon.
Oh, dude, I consider them all signs of the apocalypse. They are awful. They are abominations, and should be, wiped clean of this earth by God above. But that's a topic for another day. So, all right, we are back. Front Row at the Freak Show, 646-668-8756. Hope you enjoyed the double John action tonight. John Oliver and with some comedy, and John Fullbright playing God above. And you know, I think I tweeted this out during the week. You know, where else, Adamizer, are you going to get? You know, last week it was Morton Downey Jr. and Dropkick Murphys and us, you know, dropping some truth about documentaries and all sorts of different media. I just don't know where else you're getting this anywhere on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, we do keep it original, and you know, I'll tell you though, it's amazing to me how repetitive almost everything that I see and listen to these days is. How it's all derivative of other stuff that you know. I'm always, at best you call it inspired, but I'm always finding, you know, I'm always looking at something and saying, oh, okay, I see where they got that idea. You know what I mean? At least what we bring you is, you know, is our own, and nothing, you know, nothing even necessarily inspired by anyone else. It's just what needs to be said.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I think that we're only going to keep expanding that. Yep. You know, and you know, taking deeper and deeper looks into the freak show. So speaking of the freak show. We got a guy online on hold here that is a, you know, well, he's a member of the Freak Show. I don't know where I was going with that. I just wanted to get him on the air. So we are going to go. I believe this is Mr. Brian from the 304. Let's get him on here and let him wait no longer. Brian, you with us?
Yes, sir.
Hey.
There you are. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the grand introduction. I appreciate that.
Oh, you got it. Hey, Brian, let me just ask you right front. How'd you feel about the John Fullbright?
You know, I have to say I liked the message behind it probably more than I enjoyed the the actual song, but it was pretty good,
too.
You know. It was right on that.
This is a conspiracy, I tell you. This is a conspiracy.
It was right in that fine line between country and rock. I'll give you that.
What was that?
It had a nice Stevie Ray Vaughan type vibe. You know, it wasn't total country.
Stevie Ray Vaughan vibe. Shit. Well, you know, both from Texas. And I swear to God, if I had to pick one state and I could only listen to music from that state, it's Texas all the way. And I dare anyone to counter that with any other state, because Texas is a music making fucking machine. All right.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm not opening that can of worms, no.
Right. So, Brian, what's on your mind tonight? What got you itching to call into the front row here?
Well, this type of discussion always, it gives me that apprehensive, tight, close to a heart attack feeling in my chest.
Ooh, sorry.
Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, that's what's great about it is, you know, it's dangerous talk in these times. I mean, you look at things like the Sedition Act, which is no better than the Patriot Act, which is basically just a revamped version of the Sedition Act, giving, you know, them the right to just take you away for whatever they say you said. So, you know, I mean, It's important to make everyone aware of these topics and these issues, but there also is a danger that people need to be aware of. I mean, you guys are putting yourself out there. You know, these are very unpopular ideas, as true as they may be.
You know what? Can I ask you something? Because it's funny, because I've been kind of reformulating my thoughts on a particular guy that's pretty popular out there. And I know you all know him, and Adamizer, think I know what your position kind of is, but Alex
Starting to
Jones.
lose faith in him, are you?
No, well, that's a hard way to put it. But just on the heels of what Brian was saying, right? Obviously, like, okay, why hasn't Alex Jones had a bullet put in his brain over the last 20 years?
Yeah, well, if you want my opinion on it, it's because he's not all that much less mainstream than a lot of other people. He's, some things are certainly fine to talk about, but he's still Christian, he's still capitalist. As long as he's towing lines like that, I don't think that he's in a lot of danger.
I would agree.
Okay.
I think that things that
can I ask you,
says,
Brian, are you a fan? Are you a fan of Alex, or do you know him, or have you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of him. I do read some of his things that he puts out. I'm not as familiar as you guys, I would assume. But I mean, I know who he is, and I know the type of things that he writes. And I just think, going back to what you guys were saying earlier, the American public in general either doesn't believe these types of things that we're talking about, or they don't want to deal with it. They would much rather just adhere to the social narrative, watch the reality TV, adopt the illusion of Republican and Democrat and their empowered choice between them, and push all the other stuff out of their mind. And when you talk about people like Alex Jones and you guys, and I mean, what are those, Clyde Lewis, and then the other guy that does Coast to Coast AM, like those type of guys, and you guys, we're in the minority. There's not a lot of people who believe any of the things we're saying.
Right. You're absolutely right. And what you're reminding me of is, if you ever seen the movie Easy Rider, and the little speech that Jack Nicholson gives around the fire, where he's talking about how he admires the other guys because they're free, and he says most people aren't free. Now, you can't go telling a man that he's not free, or he'll go off chopping off heads just to prove that he is. I think the same is very much true with people being informed and knowing the truth. So few people can honestly say that they're objective when it comes to parsing out media stories or figuring out what's really going on in this world. They don't want to be objective. They're much more comfortable fitting in than they are with seeking out the truth and worse yet, sharing the truth. And I would say in the case of Alex Jones, I don't see him being all that different. I mean, the man is whatever he wants to call himself. He's essentially a capitalist libertarian. Well, capitalist libertarian is exactly what the rich want. That's what they are. They want, you've got the Koch brothers spending $900 million on this upcoming presidential election. That's the same as either of the major political parties, all for the purposes of basically stripping workers of all protection, stripping the government of its power so that businessmen can go about doing what businessmen do, which is screwing everybody else. I mean, I think I just want to say I think that Alex Jones is helping them in that direction.
Well, aren't they using government as a vehicle to achieve that power?
Yes, but that's not their end goal. Again, they're if you really take a step back and look at the goal of people like the Koch brothers, and almost any of these ultra right wing libertarian-esque rich folks, they're using the government. They are using the government to their own ends at this point. But it's still it's like a tax to them that they actually have to pay. They don't have to pay real taxes, but they still have to pay lobbyists. They still have to pay campaign donations. Again, they're putting $900 million into trying to get the government to go their way. They don't want to have to pay that money. It would be much easier to them if there was no government to even think about protecting workers and stopping them from doing the things that they want to do. So while they can deal with government because it's just an added expense to them at this point, again, they would rather do away with that expense and move on to a world where they put us in chains and nobody can complain.
No, because I think then the focus then becomes too much on them. Right now it gets divided, right? And, people get split either on focusing on the government or the corporate side of things, right?
I think they would find if they ever got their wish and they didn't have a government that they would need to put something else in its place to act as their PR wing, because that's really what the government is doing if you think about it. The government is what gives us the illusion that we have some kind of control, that our votes matter and things like that. You take that away, there's going to be a lot more revolution in the streets. So, I mean, if you were to ask me, I think they're not looking out for their best interests in trying to disable the government. I think that they're going to find that ends up backfiring if they ever succeed at doing it. But they don't, again, they have it in their minds. They only see government as an expense. They're spending $900 million this coming election. They don't want to have to spend that, so they want government gone.
I think you're both right in a way. Are either of you familiar with Cloud Atlas?
Yeah, I watched that, yeah.
Okay, so they talk about the corporatocracy. And I think one of the primary goals is not to totally get rid of government, but to have more of a blend between big business and government so that the lines become very, very faded. So, that we gradually just become unaware of what's happening around us, which we largely are now. And, we all feed into this system. You're familiar with the ground wage or the floor wage, where every citizen, for those out there who may not know, every citizen gets a wage just for living. You have a guaranteed income, and if you would like to work above and beyond that, you can. But if you don't want to, then you don't have to, but you have enough to live. And when you create this dependency, then you can never really fully get rid of the system because everyone is dependent upon it.
Right.
And I wrote, if you'll indulge me for just a second, I had a teacher, and this was a Poli-Sci 101 class. It was 2 years ago. And he's no longer with us, Professor Terry Spivey. And he called the Internet the Wild West, like the last frontier, because it's the only place that you can go. It's where we are now, finding out truth. And I wrote, I'll be brief, the mass media has taken a firm foothold in the lives of most Americans. The mass media is named as such because the information reaches large numbers of people. Looking back to the Revolutionary War days, committees of correspondence would write up the pertinent information and disperse it amongst the colonies. These committees were formed and controlled by the leaders of our future government. This demonstrates the control of information from the very beginning of our nation. What exists now is not a far cry from the past. And then, I go on to talk about there's only 6 conglomerates, Time Warner, General Electric, Viacom, Bertelsmann, Walt Disney, and News Corporation, down from 23 in 1989. So, and then you talked about that earlier, and then, Crafty, you talked about these buzzwords and these things that we're not even aware of. People want to act like they're smarter and they can't be fooled, but we see it every day. They use these words to control us, and even the smartest of us are hit at our lizard brain, so to speak, with all these fear words and images to push us in the directions they want us to go.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly how propaganda works. I mean, if you can appeal to you call it the lizard brain, but basically the center portion of the brain, which is responsible for our emotions, and those emotions being things like fear, hatred, even love, or whatever it may be, then you're able to completely bypass the logical defenses of the brain, the centers that process information and question it and think critically. That's exactly how the Tea Party works. They're filled full of words on the one hand like communist and socialist and Nazi and whatever else, and on the other hand they're filled and terrorist, and on the other hand they're filled full of words like liberty and freedom and by simply using these kinds of key words in the right context, they're completely flipped around and fighting against their own interests. So, absolutely, I agree with everything you just said. But that is how propaganda works. As long as they can bypass those defenses that exist in our outer brain and get to that inner brain and push those emotional buttons, people don't want to think. They want to react, and that's how we get into the world that we're in.
It's funny because something that a question that popped up in my head kind of while we were talking, but it also occurred to me this week. What I get most amazed about, and it's just kind of like going back to you, Adamizer, when you said, anyone who takes a look at 9/11, right? I mean, obviously, you take even a tertiary look at the real evidence. I mean, you're pretty much left with no choice but knowing that, on some level there was a cover-up, lie, whatever, right?
Right.
So, given everything that we've been talking about, my question is it the propaganda? Is the society as a whole so beaten down? Because, all right, I come from a family of 6, or I'm the 6th. I'm the baby, okay? And pretty much of my brothers and sisters, the only one that's awake, okay? And I'm the youngest in my mid-40s. So, and the oldest is 11 years older than me. So, but my question is, how do you go through life without asking the fucking question, right? Like, how do you...
well, I mean, think back to before you were asking the question.
What's that?
I say think back to before you were asking the questions. I mean, that would be the way that I would begin to try to get perspective on that, is that, like I used to glance at the evidence and say, well, obviously something's amiss here. There's some sort of cover-up, but I'm sure they're doing it for the right reasons. That's what I used to tell myself, right? I figured, the government has things that it can't tell us about, and I'm sure they're doing it for the right reasons. And realistically, it is that desire to trust in the government, trust in the systems, to trust your own perception of the world, and to believe that, you couldn't possibly be so foolish as to let them slip something like that past you. It's almost an ego kind of thing. And at the end of the day, I think that, in order to get rid of that, in order to get past that, you have to be willing to be wrong. You have to be willing to change your entire manner of thinking. And you have to be willing not to trust the things that you were brought up to trust. And I think that's a hard step for a lot of people. I think it's a lot easier to just leave things the way they are than to change based on new evidence. I mean, look at Christians, perfect example.
Yeah.
If Christians would just change based on new evidence, there wouldn't be any Christians anymore, but they don't. And it's the same with right-wingers. It's the same with, any given group of people. It is such a rarity to be willing to change with new information and to change your perspective with new information. And again, there were times, in my history where I wasn't ready to do that. And I think a lot of people are so comforted by their illusions that you can trust the government, or you can trust corporations. People don't want to sit down and realize that the pills you're getting from the pharmaceutical companies are poison. They don't want to sit down and realize that even the GMOs are bad for us. It's a hard thing. Truth is a lot harder to accept than fiction. And the thing is, though, truth doesn't care whether you accept it. Truth is truth. It's going to be truth. And I would always rather have truth on my side. And Brian, you brought this up. In terms of the not just the danger, but the stigma that goes along with it. I would rather have truth on my side and have everybody think I'm fucking crazy than than to live in the world of illusion that most people live in. But there are so few people, I think, who feel that way.
Yeah, but maybe I didn't ask the question correctly, because it's like, when you came back with, well, what were you doing before you asked the questions? But, I'm talking about, too, the natural progression of life and going, through those stages. I mean, obviously, when you're, young, dumb, full of cum, you're doing whatever the hell you're doing, right? But that natural that when you hit your 30s, 40s, and that running along the same matrix of, what this country and world has been doing in that same exact period of time. Asking that, why have we been in war for, 98 of 100 years or whatever? Just a couple of key basic questions that I just think, to me, are natural when you get to that 30, 40, 50 age, right? You start questioning life.
I absolutely.
I don't see enough people asking those questions. I'm looking at my own family.
I think they are asking the questions. Okay, I think that you're right that it's a natural progression. You get to a certain age. I think for most people, you do start asking those questions. But I think the problem comes in that there is a whole host of people, the mainstream media being one of them, who are happy to give you wrong answers to those questions, comforting but wrong answers to those questions, especially when it comes to finding somebody to blame. There is no shortage of scapegoats. The Republicans and right-wingers will give you serve up the poor as a scapegoat. The so-called left, which I don't call them left, but the Democrats, they'll serve up the Republicans as the scapegoats. There's plenty of ability to ask the question and get an answer that might be comforting but not true.
I don't think it's just your family, though. I think it's everyone. I think most people are comfortable.
Right.
They don't, no one wants to realize that Soylent Green is people until they see the people being made into Soylent Green.
Right.
Nothing short of the end will trigger those questions because not everyone's wired like we are. And unfortunately, even when presented with damn near irrefutable evidence, they're still unwilling. They're saying, well, yes, I see that, but look at all of this over here. And, I'm fine. I have a job, Is
it allegory of the cave stuff? Is that kind of...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
I just don't... again, looking at my siblings, which I'm saying, just like you referred to, Brian, as a, kind of a cross section of people, right? And kind of representing the majority out there. I just don't know. And I guess maybe you're right. They're just satisfied with that first answer they get. But to me, it's like, I just sit here and say, well, okay, now we have accumulated. There is just so much evidence. There is just, and whether it's Bill O'Reilly or Brian Williams that's been caught openly lying, isn't that next question, what the fuck else is lying to us, right? But it's not. They just, it's continual, isolated cases that I guess are apparently not, in their minds, have any connectivity to each other.
No, I would agree. Us leading from the quiet corners after everything falls apart.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Well, we're not going to be able to hash it out in the next 28 seconds, gentlemen. Looks like we're winding down here.
Thanks again for calling in, and I'll certainly, hopefully we'll both be calling in next week. We're coming down to our final 10 seconds here, front row at the Freak Show. Had a good time talking some mainstream media tonight. I will be just checking in next week. Adamizer will be running the show. Until then, he's Adamizer. I'm Crafty. And for Brian as well, we are front row at the Freak Show. You freaks be good now. You hear?